All right, so this is going to be the practice AP questions for Perfect Competition Part 1. So let's get started. So question number 9. One characteristic of a perfectly competitive market is that individual firms do what? So let's go through each one of these answer choices. So answer choice A, engage in product differentiation. So what that means is basically the products that they produce are going to be different, right? They're not substitutable at all. And we know that is not true, right? Because he said one of the characteristics of perfectly competitive firms is that their products are identical, right? They are perfectly substitutable with each other. Answer choice B, are free to enter or exit an industry in the long run. Well, that's true, right? We said that for perfectly competitive markets, there are very low barriers to entry. In other words, that if a firm is making profits, other firms are free to join in and join the market. Or if a firm is making a loss, other firms are free to leave the market, right? There are basically no barriers to entry in perfectly competitive market structures. Well, we know B is the right answer, but for the sake of exercise, let's just go through C, D, and E. So C, earn positive economic profits in the long run. Well, that isn't true, right? Because in the long run, they're making a normal profit. Or in other words, right, they're making no economic profit whatsoever. D, advertise to increase market share. We also know that's incorrect, right? Because we know that they don't need to advertise at all, right? If all the products they produce are perfectly substitutable, perfectly identical, there is no reason to advertise here. And then, E, face a downward sloping demand curve. Well, the reason why E is incorrect is because we're looking at the individual firms. If this is talking about the market itself, then yes, because we use a traditional supply and demand graph to represent the market, E would be correct. However, because we're looking at the firm itself, right? Remember, our demand curve is perfectly elastic, where it equals marginal revenue, price, and also the average revenue there. All right, so question 36. A farmer produces peppers in a perfectly competitive market. If the price falls in the short run, the farmer should do what? And so here, the key thing to know in this question is in the short run, right? So in the short run, should the farmer increase production? Well, the answer is no, right? Because if you increase or decrease production, that is a long run thing, right? So A is incorrect. Increase production, that is a long run thing. Incorrect. Discontinue production, that is a long run sort of thing, right? So we're left with D and E, and they're both relatively the same, right? D stands for continue to produce only if the new price covers the average fixed costs, and E, continue to produce only if the new price covers average variable costs. And so remember, the only thing that we really care about whether to continue or produce or not is going to be our average variable costs. And what determines, right, a firm should shut down or not is going to be that minimum point on the AVC. If the price falls below it, right, then the firm should shut down. If the price falls above it, the firm should continue to produce. And so this idea of average fixed costs does not make any sense. Average fixed costs does not determine anything. Instead, it's going to be our average variable cost that determines stuff, and so that's why E is the correct answer. So I'm going to label this 1 and 2. So at price 0A, right? So at 0A, it's here, this line right here. Right? And so this is going to be our price, our marginal revenue, our demand, and also our average revenue curve here. So economic profits are what? At price of 0A. Well, we know first point is we need to go to our MR equals MC, right? And that's this point right here. And they are going to be producing this much. But then we also have to go down to our ATC, right? Right here. And so this box right here, right, represents, right, our total costs. And so that means, right, that this area shaded in green represents the area of profit or loss, or in this case, area of profit, right? And so we know, right, it's A, H, I think that's K, and B. And so that's why B is the correct answer here. And then let's erase this so we can get to our next question. So our next question, right, deals with in the short run, well, what's going to happen? In the short run, the firm will stop producing when the price falls below. So remember, for shutdown, we really only care about the AVC, or more specifically, the minimum point on the AVC. So in other words, we just have to look at here, right? Because we said where the marginal cost intersects with these average cost curves is going to represent that minimum point. And so here, if this is our average variable cost curve here, where it intersects with the marginal cost is right here, that's our minimum point here. And so where is that? Is it 0A? No, because 0A is up here. Is it 0B? Nope. Is it 0C? Nope. 0D? Yep, that is correct. And it's not 0E because that's the minimum of the marginal cost, not necessarily the minimum of the average variable cost. So that's why D, as in dog, is the correct answer. Oops. All right, so our FRQ, 2007. So for each of the following statements, indicate whether it is true, false, uncertain, and explain why. So whenever you see the word explain, you have to do what it says. You have to explain your answer. Why is it correct here? So let's look at A. Average total cost is always greater than average variable cost by a constant amount. Well, we know that is inherently false because we said our average total cost and average variable cost, right? They get closer and closer together because the distance between the two represents our average fixed cost. And we know our average fixed cost decreases the more output is produced, right? And that would be the explanation there. And for sake of space, I'm not going to actually write down the explanation. So the explanation for answer choice A is false because the distance between the average total and the average variable cost is the average fixed cost, which decreases as output increases. Answer choice B. In the short run, a perfectly competitive firm always maximizes profit when ATC is at its minimum, right? This is false also, right? Because we know a firm maximizes profit when marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which has nothing to do with the ATC, right? And so if you explain it that way, we're saying the profit maximizing spot is where MR equals MC, and that's why the statement is false. You would get the full points for this question. And then lastly, C, if a firm shuts down in the short run, its profits will equal 0. Yet again, this is false. And the reason why this is false is because its profits will be negative. They'll be incurring a loss. If they're shutting down, right, that means they cannot cover their fixed costs. They also can't cover their average variable costs. So they're incurring a loss here. And so their profit is not 0. It's actually negative. And so that's why C is also false. All right, so the last FRQ. So I broke it up, A, B, C, D, E. We're doing A and B on this slide, C and D on the next slide, and then part E on the last slide. So here, what is the dollar value of the firm's total fixed cost? Remember, fixed costs are costs that you always have to pay even if you're not producing anything, right? It's going to remain constant no matter how much or how little you produce. So here, right, if at 0 quantity produced, our total cost is $20, that means, right, that the firm's total fixed cost is $20. B, calculate the marginal cost of producing the first unit of output, right? So we just go from 0 to 1. It increases from 20 to 27, right? So the difference is $7. So B, the marginal cost is $7. And you notice here, it doesn't ask us to explain, so it's okay, and you're still going to get the full points if you just write down $20 or $7 here. All right, so C, if the price the firm receives for its product is $20, the firm's profit maximizing quantity of output, or indicate the firm's profit maximizing quantity of output and explain how you determined your answer. Well, here, right, remember, the profit maximizing quantity is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So we first need to determine what the marginal cost is. So the marginal cost of the first one we said was 7, then 11, then 15, and then 19, 23, and 27. And then here, we know what the price is. We know what the marginal revenue is, right? Because here, the marginal revenue is the same thing as the price. Each good is going to be sold at the same amount. So here, all the way down, if our price of the product is $20, then all the way down, it's $20 here. So now we can just say, well, are we going to buy the first good? Well, yes, because our marginal revenue, and let's indicate this as MR, which also remembers the price. Our marginal revenue is 20, our marginal cost is 7, right? Marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, so we're going to buy the first unit. Are we going to buy the second unit? Well, yes, because our marginal revenue is 20 and our marginal cost is 11. The third, yes, it's still greater. The fourth, yes, right? Because here at the fourth unit, our marginal revenue or our price is $20 and our marginal cost is 19. And then for quantity 5, our marginal revenue is 20 and our marginal cost is 23. So at that point, we will not produce the 5th unit because the marginal cost then is greater than our marginal revenue. So the answer to question C, or part C, is going to be, right, 4 units. And then it asks you to explain. So the explanation could be something as simple as 4 units because the marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost at the 4th unit, and the marginal cost of the 5th unit is 23, while the marginal revenue of the 5th unit is 20, so we would not be producing at that 5th unit. All right, so D, given the results of part C, explain what will happen to the number of firms in the industry in the long run. Well, we know, right? If there's profit, firms are going to enter. If there's loss, firms are going to leave. If there's no economic profit, nothing really happens, right? No firm has an incentive to enter or leave the market here. Well, at 4 units, right, we know that our marginal revenue is 20. We know that our marginal cost is 19. And so there is profit to be made. And because of that, right, because marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, there's profit, which means firms are going to enter. Firms enter into the market. Right? And yet again, right, that's basically all you would need to say. There's profit at the 4th unit, so because there's profit, firms are going to enter, and that is enough for the explanation. All right, so part E. Assume that the government operates in a constant cost industry and has reached long-run equilibrium. If the firm imposes a per unit tax of $2, indicate what will happen to the firm's profit maximizing output in the long run, right? So here, right, if we're at long run equilibrium, right, where we're both productively and allocatively efficient, marginal cost, ATC, and marginal revenue, which is price, which is demand, right? And so here, if there's a per unit tax, right, it's going to increase our price by $2, which means they're going to make a profit, but then it asks in the long run. In the long run, nothing really happens, right? We always end up back at our equilibrium point. So the answer for question E is that there is no change whatsoever, right? Because here for the firm, as we go from long run to long run, right, the quantity is never going to change. The quantity is going to change as you go from long run to short run. But as you go from short run back to long run, right, we return back to that original quantity in the firm, right? Of course, the equilibrium quantity in the market is going to change, but the quantity of the individual firms are going to revert back to its original level. All right, so that's it. If you have additional questions, just feel free to send me an email or send me a message to Remind. I'll be more than happy to clarify things for you. But that's all I have for you guys today, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.